Is a Hall of Fame or nah? We're gonna start with Chris Webber, and this is a very interesting one. My opinion, this is a guy who came in hot, had a Hall of Fame potential, and kind of fizzled out. Like I don't know where everyone's gonna land on this. I mean, we're talking about Chris Webber. He averaged about 20 points per game, 5-time All Star, 5-time All NBA. But is he a Hall of Famer? Scruff, I'm gonna start with you on this.
All right, man. Y'all know me, man. Y'all know me. I watch tape, man. I don't care about stats. So forget them all-star appearances, forget them stats. I'm just going off of feeling. You know what I'm saying? This is how I felt growing up watching Chris Webber. When I grew up, man, in the era where big men were king, like young man watching Karl Malone, young Hakeem the Dream. But I really grew up, and my favorite two players. I actually played position power forward, so my two favorite players growing up, besides Allen Iverson, at that position were Kevin Garnett and Chris Webber. They were the two best bigs in the league. I mean, Tim Duncan too, but he's just corny. So I mean, I like Chris Webber. I like Chris Webber a lot, bro. Chris Webber was the prototypical, he was the new breed of power forwards. He's athletic. He's a playmaker. He could, if it wasn't for Shaq and Kobe, those Kings teams would have won a championship. Those were championship caliber teams. So with all due respect, Chris Webber is definitely a Hall of Famer in my book. And also he's a Hall of Famer just in terms of basketball all around, man. Even though that Fab Five they didn't win anything, but they were transcendent upon changing the game. They were iconic. And that timeout was also iconic. It's not necessarily something that you want to necessarily be probably mad about it, but he's immortalized because of that timeout. You know what I mean? And in addition to his great career, man, we even had him on the Sixers for a couple years, and he was all right even then, man. The loose neck jumper, man, that mid range was like that. And when he was that super athletic at his prime, Vlade Divac, Doug Christie, Mike Bibby, Peja Stojakovic, that Kings team is one of the best teams that ever won championship, man, for real. But Chris Webber's getting in my book any day.
Okay, so we got one vote for Chris Webber in the Hall. T, is he getting your vote? Chris Webber to the Hall.
For sure. I'm actually not sure what Webber did to not get voted in. I feel like Webber probably should have been a first ballot guy. Just name alone. But I mean, like you said, man, Fab Five. I think he was Rookie of the Year, 5 All-Star games. He was a 20 and 10 guy. He's one of the original small ball fives, stretch fours. I don't know how you don't put Webber in. I mean, I guess he doesn't have the ring, right? And it's sad because I think that's what it comes down to a lot of times these days. But I mean, like you said, that was an era of big men. Rasheed Wallace, who I think is in it as well. I know he played a little with Dirk. Webber's career spanned a time zone where there was the legend big men and then the new legend big men. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, all the way from Carmelo to Dirk. So Webber played a long time, and I think he deserves to get in. My measure of an athlete at that level a lot of times is what their peers say about them. And everybody speaks fondly of C. Webb. They talk about how hard it was to guard him. Outside of a three-point shot, like a true three-point shot, he had everything else in his bag. He could even handle the ball a little bit. He averaged almost 5 assists, so he could pass. You gotta let him in. I don't know. They're trying to TL my man for some reason, but he should be in.
Shoot,
all right,
shot
Bryce,
better for most.
Chris Webber, Hall of Fame.
He bagged Tyra. That should get you in just off the strength. You had Tyra, bro.
He deserved it for that alone. Put him in even a different Hall of Fame for that one, huh? But no, I think Chris Webber got to be in. I think this is an easy one. I mean, I think Chris Webber's career, and don't get me wrong, I don't think as a player, but I think it kind of reminds me of Patrick Ewing's a little bit in the sense that he just ran up against a team that was just way better than his team year after year after year. Patrick Ewing only made his only finals once Jordan and them sat out. He went up against Hakeem, and Hakeem got the chip, right? Chris Webber probably would have had the same situation if Kobe and Shaq would have sat out a year. I mean, the Kings was battling with the Lakers, but what seemed like every year. I don't know how off the top how many times he was in the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers. But he, being a youngster in that age, it seems like it was every year almost. I mean, and then they used to battle. They definitely used to battle. Chris Webber was a dog. I mean, he had a 9-year stretch where he was averaging about 23, 24 points, 12 boards, almost 5 assists. That's pretty dominant for a 9-year stretch. I think the problem with some of these guys is that the recency effect, right? The most recent way you remember Chris Webber is like Scruff said, maybe on those Sixers teams, and then that wasn't really the same Chris Webber as the Kings Chris Webber. But he was definitely a baller, man. There's no question about it. I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame already. Definitely getting snubbed. I think he's been eligible for about maybe 4 years now, maybe 4 or 5 years. I think it's 2013, so even longer than that. So definitely got to get Chris Webber in the Hall of Fame, man. Almost a travesty that he's not in, especially if you start looking at some of the names that make it in year after year. Chris Webber has better stats than him. So I think Chris Webber is on his way to the Hall of Fame. I don't think they can snub him too much longer.
So we're all in agreement that Chris Webber should be a Hall of Famer. I think, his longevity hurt him a little bit, but do we think that the real reason he's not in right now is the lack of a ring?
Yeah, that's the only way. That's the only thing I can think of, man. Because outside of that, I mean, he was a dog. He's one of the funnest players to watch. Like I said, with that Kings team playing the Lakers. I don't know how old the viewers are, but if you played 2K or live back in the day, like Jason Williams-Stojakovic, Gerald Wallace was on that team at one point. He was dunking all over the place. That was a fun team to watch.
Yeah,
there's actually maybe another reason why. Actually, now that I think about it, there might be some politics involved in why Chris Webber isn't in. Now that I think about it, he had a big, long-standing beef with University of Michigan, with the NCAA. Essentially, he kind of like, I guess he broke the code in a sense that he spoke out on, being, players getting played, and he kind of like, he was. He kind of broke the code, to be honest, it's like, no disrespect, obviously it was unethical behavior, and, we all know what happens to the whistleblower. Typically, it doesn't usually end well for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some type of political reason why he's not getting in. But yeah, I don't know, man. I can't speak to anything. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the voting circles or anything like that, but maybe something like that.
No, I think that's got to be a Scruff. I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's got to be something deeper than just the basketball. I mean, because when you're looking at players like, and with all due respect, you take a Chris Mullin, right? He doesn't have an NBA championship. You know what I mean? He only made the All-Star team 5 years. He only has one All-NBA, one first-team All-NBA. That's identical to Chris Webber, right? So I think it's got to be something deeper than just the play on the court. It has to be. And it's sad that is the case. I know Chris Webber for a minute. Let's just be honest. He got labeled as a snitch. It is what it is. Everybody from the Fab Five, it was a huge fallout with those guys. They hated him, right? And then don't get me wrong. It's not right or wrong. I'm not trying to play that card. But I'm just saying, like, that's got to be what it is at this point, because Chris Webber absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And when we bring it to the championship conversation, yeah, he doesn't have a chip. But in that era, most of the greats didn't have chips, because that's before you got to chip chasing. Bama's weren't chip chasing until they were on their very last leg. Now people are chip chasing in their prime. Things are a little bit different. We're really pretty soon we're gonna have to debate some Hall of Famers that really are fringe Hall of Famers, but that one chip, maybe 2 chips might get them in, where really if they didn't have that one chip, they wouldn't even be considered. So I mean, the game is changing. The qualifications are definitely changing right in front of our eyes for the Hall of Fame. And maybe Chris Webber's caught in the midst of that, but I think it's probably something more political.